The Chief Baseball Officer of the Boston Red Sox, Chaim Bloom, joins us right now on the Harbor One Hotline. Hey, how you doing?
I'm all right. It's been a while.
How's everybody
doing?
Great. We're doing great. Obviously, a little bit of a struggle here to start the season. From your perspective, what is not going well when it comes to this team?
Yeah, look, it's been uneven to say the least. Obviously, there have been some good things. There's also been some things that haven't clicked. On the whole, I think the identity of the offense that we hope to see has been there in terms of a group that doesn't quit, that grinds the bat, to earn every out you get, and that's been reflected in the runs we've scored. Obviously, we haven't always timed that up with the nights where we're not allowing runs. So there's a few things, obviously, that we need to tighten up.
Chaim, when you come into the season, because there was a lot of maybe a little bit of hesitation on fans going, I wonder why they didn't add this guy or add that guy. When you come into the season, your expectation level is at a certain level for players, and it seems like you said they're not living up to that. When do you kind of get to the point where you maybe go, did we miss out on maybe doing some things prior to the season, or let's not hit the panic button here and let's hope that the production is there that we're expecting from some of these guys?
Well, yeah, panic is never a good idea. This team does not serve that. And, even some of the guys who are getting off to slow starts, you look at that, this has happened before, including in really successful seasons with some of these guys. It's obviously you want to win every game you play. And the fact that we haven't, and that, we've lost more than we've won so far, didn't sit well with any of us. But, it's not like, we feel that these guys are disappointing us. Anytime we don't live up to a standard of excellence, we're all disappointed, and so are they. But you have to stay with it. I mean, the biggest thing that this game will show you, and obviously the team on the other side of the field from us has done a great job of this over the years, is you just got to stay together and not panic. I think this group in spring training did an incredible job of setting that tone. And it's been uneven to start the season, but, we got to stick with the right approach. And that's what the marathon of the season will reward.
Chaim, when it comes to Chris Sale, another tough outing from him yesterday. Sam Kennedy called him your guy's ace on opening day. How long do you give it? Obviously, he's frustrated before, you may reconsider who he is for this team.
Yeah, I think if Chris, look, coming into the season, if I think anybody who follows the club, if you had said that, the stuff, the velocity, the swing and miss would be there to the extent that it has been there the first three starts, I think that's something we would all be pretty excited about. Now, at the same time, that's obviously, come with some inconsistency, and the command piece hasn't been there like it's been in the past. But the fact that the stuff is there, and when you consider everything this guy's been through, that part's encouraging. Obviously, nobody is going to work harder than Chris to try to figure this out and just make sure he's executing every inning, every pitch the way he wants to, the way that we know that he can. But the stuff's been in a pretty good spot. And he obviously still has the velo. Actually, the velo's been better than historically it often has been at this point in the year. And, he's going to keep battling. That, and he's an incredible competitor. So encouraged by the state of the stuff, and we got to keep working with him to just make sure he's executing it.
Is arm replacement surgery an option?
Well, to that point, do you think it's more of a mental?
On the menu of options?
Do you think it's more of a mental or a physical situation when it comes to Chris?
Well, again, we're talking three starts here where he has been able to generate the velo. He has missed some bats. He's obviously, gotten hurt, gotten hit when, the command hasn't been there, and that's come and gone. And, sometimes that's something that, you have to get in sync and get in a rhythm and get a feel for. So I'd much rather us be looking at this point in the season at somebody who shows you what you're hoping to see in terms of, the power that he can generate, the power to the stuff, and that we're waiting on the command to come around and vice versa. I do think obviously physically a lot of things are in a good place. It's just the consistency that we need to work on.
Chaim, I just don't understand the shortstop situation. I recognize Trevor Story's injury that you found out about February, January area, and I understand that Bogart's got money that 90% of the teams would not spend, and you kept Devers, good move. But it just feels like each season, whether it's first base or shortstop this year, there's just these vacancies at important positions. How would you explain that?
Well, this stretch where we're facing a lot of left-handers, obviously, it's made sense for us to try to maximize the number of right-handed bats that we have most nights. And then obviously we've been hit with some very kind of like, you look at what happened with Yoshida yesterday, where he's going to miss a couple days. Not something that looks to be serious, something that, we don't see turning into an IL situation, but requires you to scramble a little bit in the short term. And in the short term, obviously the best way to do that, last night, Alex is looking at the options for last night, making sure we're resting who we need to rest. And the value of Kike to be able to bounce out to center field helps there. So that obviously leaves us without our shortstop for tonight. And, we may see that for a couple of days while we're going through the stretch. I think once we're facing a more normal slate of starting pitching, we'll be able to get this to a point where we'll have a little more consistency with that position. But, I'm recognizing that there's been some inconsistency defensively. I think the track record will tell you that Kike Hernandez is a pretty good baseball player, pretty good infielder, and we feel good about him when he's playing shortstop.
But if everything goes well, that's a plan that you endorse, that Kike's your everyday shortstop?
Yeah, look, as we get healthier over the course of the season, we'll have other options that I think we'll see time over there. But we have a lot of confidence in it.
Hindsight being 2020, do you wish that when you reflect back on the trade deadline, do you wish that you did anything different? I mean, essentially, we talked about Bogarts, Martinez, Evaldi, Waka, Barnes. They all ended up going, and the team got nothing back for those players and finished in last place. I know Sam said on this show on opening day that you guys were trying to, I think he said, thread a needle when it came to being a playoff team. But do you at all look back at trade deadline time and wish you got some value there when it comes to needing players on this roster?
Yeah, look, with the benefit of hindsight, obviously, when you are trying to do your best to stay in the hunt while still making sure you're not being irresponsible, you obviously know there's a chance that it might not go your way. And if you knew that for sure, obviously, yeah, would we behave a little differently? Sure. But, I said this at the time. The reason that we moved Christian was because we got a return for him that we felt was good enough to really justify, taking him off a club that was still trying to compete. If that return had been there for other guys, we would have pulled the trigger. It just wasn't. It wasn't that type of trade market, especially for rental players. And when you look around the league, I think, and you look at the returns that clubs got for rentals, I think it bears that out. So if it had been there, we would have had to swallow hard and make some tough and unpopular decisions. But it wasn't, so it wasn't something we were going to force.
So, like in the case of JD Martinez, just to be clear, that you couldn't get value for that player?
Yeah, again, I don't want to dive too deep into pulling apart specific situations in the past, but what I can say, again, I can point to who we got for Christian. We're able to get two interesting young players we like. Thought that was enough to justify moving him, and we would have been willing to act on other guys if we had thought that the return was there.
Chaim, kind of take us in behind the scenes a little bit. I know when I played in the NFL, at that point in time, it was 16 games, and we broke the season down into 4 quarters. And I know you guys break them down into series that you want to win. But when you look at, like, where you guys have started, can you break it down to kind of give some fans, like, a kind of visions of hope that there is light at the end of the tunnel? Like, how do you break it down in the sense of multiple series over a course of period of time when you're kind of, like, looking at your schedule?
Yeah, I think it's kind of helpful shorthand, obviously, to look at it. Hey, we want to win this series. We want to win that series. I think part of the reason we use that shorthand is because that in baseball, it's 162 games. You can have an amazing season and still end up losing a whole heck of a lot of those games. So, to break things up into smaller chunks so that you don't get too far ahead of yourself is I think pretty helpful. It's definitely helpful for everybody in the dugout. It's helpful for us, and I think it's helpful for fans. But at the end of the day, each day that you play, you have one game to go win. I think I've said this before, but it's actually really interesting. When we were talking to Justin Turner this offseason, had some really, really good conversations with him. Just understanding who this guy has been for the clubs he's been on in his career and picking his brain, both informing him about our situation and just picking his brain on different thoughts and what he was looking for. This is while he was still a free agent. And one thing he said that stuck with me, obviously he was a part of a lot of successful clubs during his time with LA. And, they tended to generally have pretty good seasons. Obviously, some of those clubs did better than others. And his point was it didn't always even reflect necessarily the talent in the room. He said what really separates teams over the course of the season is their ability to think of this as 162 one-game seasons. That whatever happened yesterday, whatever could happen tomorrow, just isn't worth focusing on. And you're going to do the best over the course of that if you're just locked in on what has to happen today. And he views it as, winning kind of correlates with how good you are at doing that. And that's a mindset that he wanted to try to help young players with. And it's something that young players don't always come into the league being really good at. And, that really resonated with me, just the way that he explained it, the way that he talked about it. And so I think that's the most productive mindset. It is impossible not to look at the standings, right? But this old adage that, hey, you probably shouldn't even worry about it until whenever, Memorial Day, whatever. There's some truth to that because it's not going to help you. Obviously, baseball is a game where I think more than any other sport, you can have a night, a series, a week where you look awesome. And then the same group, the same season can have a week or a month where, you feel like you're never going to win again. And that can happen in the middle of good seasons. So these things run away from you if you let them run away from you. If you keep the mindset that you need to have, it's actually going to benefit you, and it's going to come back to you if you let it.
I mean, if it's 162 one-game seasons, then why is Bobby Dalbec starting at short on April 12th? Like, it's not like you're in July and there's been this, it feels like the club opened the year with holes that it failed to fill in the offseason, and it's already coming back before we're even at Patriots Day.
Yeah, again, I mean, whether April or July, sometimes you end up in situations on a given night where you don't have everybody available that you want. And in that case, and I know Alex spoke to this last night, Rob had played a bunch of days in a row, which comes with, having this stretch of lefties. That's something we want to make sure he's available for. And it made sense to give him a day. And, that is ultimately going to benefit us more over the long haul, because if you got to make sure you're using players right, you got to make sure you're taking care of players. Obviously, with everybody who was down last night, that wasn't ideal for us. But there was a reason that we explored that possibility in spring training, just so we were ready for it if it did happen, knowing that we had this stretch coming up on our schedule. And, is it perfect? Is it ideal? No, but that's going to happen over the course of the season. Obviously, you don't want it to happen every night, but you are going to go through stretches for a day, 2, 3, where guys are going to have to step up. Every team goes through it. This is happening around the league in a lot of different places. You can look at different teams and not always see them having their ideal lineup out there on a given night. That's part of the game. And, no excuses. Guys need to step up. We need to make sure we've got different options. But this is part of the game, and it creates opportunity. And obviously, you need to see what guys do with that opportunity.
All right. Keep the faith, and appreciate you taking the time, and we'll talk to you again soon. Chaim Bloom.
Yes, you got it, guys.
All right.